Welcome to another Wednesday News of the Week video, and we're going to jump straight in to talk about some of the transfer rumors that happened from these last couple of days. And probably the biggest transfer rumors that happened in the past couple of days involve NYCFC that is reported to make a $10 million bid for Benfica winger Franco Cervi. Now, a couple of months ago, I remember this was a guy that was rumored to come to MLS, and specifically NYCFC was the team that want to get him to come to MLS, but that rumor kind of eventually died down a little bit, and I was thinking, well, it seemed like they're no longer interested in this player anymore. And then all of a sudden, just a couple of days ago, his name gets brought up, and that not only the fact that he's once again linked with NYCFC, but NYCFC seems to be very committed to trying to get him from Benfica by paying $10 million to get him. Now, Franco Cervi, this is a guy that used to be a regular starter, and he used to be one of the high potential Argentine winger and was actually on the brinks of potentially breaking into the national team and even be a regular starter in the winger position for the Argentine national team. But obviously he kind of fell out of favor with Benfica, and that his form kind of dropped a little bit throughout these past couple of seasons. But hopefully, if he does come to MLS, maybe he can rediscover that good form that he had a couple of seasons ago. But that being said, for NYCFC, with the $10 million bid that they're getting, they really hope that he is actually decent, because we've seen before when teams are decided to chuck in a huge amount of money, and kind of an 8-figure amount of money, to either get a young South American player down in South America, or maybe get an aging European superstar player to come to play in MLS. Sometimes it can work well, and then sometimes it can really blow up in their faces, and that the money that they basically pay to get that player just never turns out to work well when they of course come to MLS and play for the respective teams. So yeah, this is going to be kind of a little bit of a high risk, high reward situation with the amount of money that NYCFC potentially is going to have to pay, and they're really hoping that Cervi is going to be a key member of their attack if they're going to get him heading into next season. Now, another blockbuster rumors that eventually is actually now an official deal is that the Houston Dynamo acquired Tim Parker in exchange for $450,000 general allocation money to the New York Redbulls. And this just seems like an annual tradition for the New York Redbulls in the offseason, where every single offseason they have to trade one of their well-known player. And as frustrated as this could be for Redbulls fans, you knew this was coming. Like last season, it was Luis Robles and BWP both going off to free agency, and then I know in 2018 it was Tyler Adams, who, despite the fact that he did make the jump to Europe and play for RB Leipzig, they did not get a lot of money out of him, and that they clearly should have got more with the way that he was just such a talented player that is making the jump to Europe. And then even going back a couple of years ago, this was the same team that let go of some of their captain, like Dax McCarty and Sasha Christian, to join on other MLS teams. So yeah, they have a history of decided to let go some of their most important player, and this time it's Tim Parker that is going to go to the Dynamo. And at least the good news about this is that they do at least get some sort of money, unlike what happened last year where they decided to let BWP and Luis Robles walked into free agency, and that $450,000 seems a right amount for them to basically sell Tim Parker to another team. And that, the Dynamo, I think this is definitely a great signing, and especially what I'm going to talk about next, about how they were finally able to get rid of Kiki Struna and kind of free up the huge sum of salary that they had to pay him, and the huge cap hit that they had to undertake by keeping Struna to the team. This is definitely an extra bonus in terms of them getting a quality the MLS defender. And that for the Redbulls, despite the fact that they did get rid of Parker, they did officially sign Andres Reyes a couple of days ago, and I'm guessing now with Parker no longer with this team, either that means that Nealis is going to be basically stepped into his role, or Reyes is just going to be chucked into the starting 11 and once again get similar amount of minutes that he got with Inter Miami from last season. Now, speaking of the Houston Dynamo, as I mentioned about Kiki Shuna, he is now traded to Montreal in exchange for Maxi Urruti. Now, if this is a situation where both teams want to get rid of their dead weight in terms of a player taking a huge amount in their salary cap and are not actually doing very well with their team, then this is a win-win situation for both of these teams. Kiki Struna, he was one of the highest paid player for the Dynamo and was taking a $1 million contract, despite the fact that he has been a very mediocre defender for the Dynamo for these past couple of seasons. And the same goes with Maxi Urruti, where Urruti, when he come to Montreal, the Impact had to, or I shouldn't say the Impact because that they're not called the Impact anymore. And don't worry, this is going to be something that I'm going to kind of continue to have until I actually get it right and say that they're now called CF Montreal and not the Montreal Impact. But Montreal, I know when they got Urruti just last season, they had to take a huge hit in their cap hit with them paying $900,000 for Maxi Urruti, and Urruti continued to show that for the past couple of seasons he has turned out to be one of the most inconsistent striker in the league, and that he was once again very inconsistent with Urruti last season. Didn't really score a ton of goals, but when he does score goals, he can sometimes score a couple of them before kind of cooled off a little bit. And I just feel like for an inconsistent striker as Urruti is, he's definitely not worth paying $900,000 and take a huge hit on your salary cap. So yeah, if this is a situation where both teams want to get rid of their player that took a huge salary dump into their salary cap, this is definitely a good move. But that being said, if both of these teams are going to sign these players to massive contract again, then I don't think this is a win-win situation for both teams, because you just got rid of a player that basically filled up most of the space of your salary cap, and you're now basically signing another player that potentially could be in this, could be another player you have to pay him a lot of money in the salary cap, and it doesn't really improve your team whatsoever. Now, the Philadelphia Union also did their annual tradition thing, which is they decided to once again trade all their super draft picks away to, and this time they of course trade all their super draft pick to Nashville in exchange for $225,000 general allocation money. And I say this to be an annual tradition because the Union, they are one of those teams that do not believe in the super draft. And it's understandable why the Union don't believe in the super draft, because they are one of these MLS teams that has started to have one of the best youth academy in their team. And when you're able to bring in a lot of good homegrown player out of your academy, the super draft is kind of a little bit redundant. I mean, you're already bringing some young talented player from your academy. You don't really need to just go to the super draft to potentially maybe find some hidden gems and hidden young American talent out of that. So it makes sense why they decided to trade all their super draft picks away, and that not only they got a good sum of money and just become richer with the way that they now got $225,000 general allocation money, but this is also a win-win situation for the team that was able to get all the draft pick that is Nashville SC, and that they can continue to use those draft pick to continue to build on the team that really surprised a lot of people heading into their inaugural season last year. Now, New England has signed Matt Turner to a contract extension, which I think this is a no-brainer news. I mean, Matt Turner was one of the best goalkeeper in the league last season, and really was one of the big reasons why they made a deep run into the playoffs. And if it wasn't for Andre Blake also having a spectacular year, and probably the reason why he got the MVP nod is that at least he was able to guide his team to a Supporter Shield win, I think Matt Turner would have won the MVP if it wasn't for Blake having also a spectacular year. But the difference is at least Blake was able to win a trophy, and unfortunately Turner didn't guide this New England team to MLS Cup or end up to have a silverware by the end of the season. But still a very good player, and I can't wait to see whether if he can continue that good form that he had last season into next year with this contract extension. Now, speaking of goalkeeper, Bill Hamid is going to be out 8 weeks after undergoing a sports hernia surgery, and that I wish him the best and certainly wish him a speedy recovery. But at least the good news for DC is that he's having this surgery now, knowing the fact that we're still into the off season. And if the schedule is probably not going to start on time, then I don't think Hamid is going to miss any game. I mean, if the schedule is going to start on time in March, then most likely they are going to have to rely on a couple of their backups. But this is also a team that just recently signed John Kempen from Columbus and have already stacked up in terms of the backup goalkeeper role, knowing the fact that eventually at some point of the season they need a good, decent backup goalkeeper to basically cover Bill Hamid in case if he suffer an injury or go with the national team. But again, if the season is not going to start on time, if the season is going to maybe be pushed back to April, then yeah, Bill Hamid is not going to miss time and it should be good and ready to play on opening day for DC United. Now, going back to New England, they decided that they're going to release Alexander Butner after one season with the team, and this is kind of an interesting one because I thought they were potentially going to be sell him to a Cyprus team and they were going to be potentially sell him to Apoel, and I guess that maybe is still on the cards with Butner potentially going to be joining Apoel on a free transfer. But still, if that is not the case, maybe that move kind of broke down and that New England, we knew that they weren't going to keep Alex Butner, knowing the fact that he not only fell out of favor of this team last season, but also he is definitely started to age a little bit, and that he is going to be heading into, I wouldn't say his mid-30s yet, but kind of into his early 30s. And usually when you are a fullback and you're heading into your early 30s, that's when you're really going to be starting to see the drop, and that New England knows that they definitely have better option in terms of the fullback position, and they don't want to keep a guy that probably is going to continue to not be very good and have some dropped in form as the player is going to get a little bit older heading into next season. Now, RSL is set to sign Bobby Wood off of free agency, and remember when Bobby Wood was a guy that was being linked to MLS and how this was something that a lot of teams were looking to try to get him because of the good form that he was in Europe, and that he was also a regular US men's national team player. Oh, how things have completely changed and how much of a fall from grace that Bobby Wood has took in these past couple of years. I mean, not only the fact that he's been struggled with Hamburg and eventually actually gone on loan with another second-tier team in Hanover, but he also weren't able to get time playing there and eventually was actually let go by Hamburg in 2019 and become a free agency ever since and not even get any minutes of play for the last two seasons. And it seemed like his value of him potentially come back to MLS is kind of less than a little bit, and it's also no wonder why a lot of teams are not willing to take Bobby Wood to sign with their team compared to what it was a couple of years ago where I mentioned that he was definitely a guy that a lot of teams were hoping that he does come back to MLS because he would really provide some good productivity going forward on the attack. But that being said, it seemed like RSL was taking the chance that hopefully they could get the old Bobby Wood when they decide to sign him off of free agency. But they also feel like this is a desperation move, knowing the fact that they do not have a number 9 in their starting 11 heading into next season. I mean, after getting rid of Sam Johnson and Corey Bear, who they traded to LAFC, they basically have nobody that can be play in that number 9 spot, and that they're getting kind of in a desperate move where they might as well just hope that Bobby Wood can rediscover his good form that he had in the past and hope that he can be a serviceable number 9 for us heading into next season. So yeah, I expect this move to potentially be complete because, again, RSL is in a very desperation stage, not only in terms of them being desperate in terms of finding a new owner, but in terms of the squad itself. It's definitely not a squad that I would say heading into next season could be a competitive team and a team that could potentially make it out of a daunting Western Conference heading into next season. Now, Swansea is interest in DC United winger Paul Arriola, and what is it with Swansea all of a sudden decided to kind of be like Barnsley a couple of months ago, where they always seems to be linked with some of these MLS players and want to bring them to the championship. Now, the latest player that they, of course, are interested, as I mentioned, is DC United winger Paul Arriola. And if I'm DC United, I'm going to try my best to keep Paul Arriola, because I know last season when Arriola suffered that season-ending injury, you can see how much of a big miss that DC United has with him not being on the pitch, and that knowing the fact that he is a big part of the attack. And even if Swansea is going to offer Arriola a loan, kind of something similar to what they are offering with Jordan Morris right now, I don't think DC is going to accept it, knowing the fact that he is such an important player for this team that if they decide to sell him, this would not make any sense, and that they will kind of once again have the same issue that they had last season on the attack if they decided to do so. So I don't think this is going to happen, and if it is going to happen, it's got to be a big amount of money and not kind of, as I mentioned, something similar to what Swansea offered for Seattle in terms of Jordan Morris joining the team on a 6-month loan. Now, Atlanta United is reported to sign former Argentina forward Lisandro Lopez, and originally when I first heard this news, I thought, well, looks like Atlanta is once again going down to South America and looking for those young talented hidden gems to develop them in Atlanta and eventually sell them off of a product. So when I found out that this guy was actually 37 years old, this was kind of surprising that they even are thinking about signing this guy, and that I understand they need to have some depth in terms of the striker spot, and that in case if Joseph Martinez is going to go down next season again, or if he of course suffers some sort of injury heading into next season, they need to have at least a good decent player to potentially replace him. And I don't think this guy is going to be a good option, knowing the fact that again he's 37 years old, and that I heard that he still is able to score a couple of goals, but is he going to be a decent player where we don't see a lot of striker that is right around that kind of age come to MLS and they're still able to produce a lot of goals. So I don't think this one kind of makes sense for Atlanta, and it's just unlike Atlanta, a team that usually believe in their youth movement on the attacking end, and they're willing to play more of their young attacker than maybe getting some of these older players to potentially be in the starting 11 for their team on the attack. Now, speaking of Joseph Martinez, he actually posted a positive update on his road back to a season-ending injury that he suffered last season, and it showed that he is actually now training, and it seemed like he is just on the verge of pretty much getting ready back to game level form and competitive kind of fitness level. And that's definitely great news for Atlanta, knowing the fact that there was a lot of question whether or not well, actually I wouldn't say there was a lot of question, but more like they were really hoping that Joseph Martinez is going to be ready for the new season, and that knowing the fact that he of course posted that positive update, yeah, most likely he's going to be ready for the regular season. And this is definitely not only good news for Atlanta, but just kind of good news in terms of the league in general, because it was definitely very strange last season to not have Joseph Martinez being a guy that is kind of like a star of the league, and really a guy that is kind of competing in terms of the Golden Boot. And I'm expecting heading into next season, he's going to be even more hungry to try to come back from this devastating injury he suffered last season, and trying to once again kind of carry this Atlanta attack on his back and try to get this Atlanta team back into playoff position that they have been for the first couple of seasons. And then finally, the last news that I'm going to talk about in this news of the week involving the U.S. men's national team that is scheduled to play Trinidad and Tobago to finish in their January camp. And this is actually the only game that they're going to be playing in the January camp. That's going to be taking place on January 26th. And I believe this game is going to be at Explorer Stadium in Orlando. And they're actually going to be opening up of the stands and gonna have fans in the stands for this game. I believe it was 25% capacity that they're going to have for this game. So if you are a U.S. men's national team fan that live in the Orlando area, it's a good team. It's a good time, or a good chance for you to potentially see the team in person. Although I do warn you, the fact that I will guarantee you that the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to charge their fans once again a lot of money. Although this time I kind of understand why they want to charge their fans a lot of money. First, with 25% capacity and with limited fans, ticket prices is definitely going to go up, because if they decide to not put the ticket price up, then basically that tickets is going to be sold out in a very quick amount of time. But at the same time, if they do once again decided to charge fan like $100 to see a meaningless friendly, then maybe nobody is going to actually go to those games. So it's all about them when they do release the tickets price in a couple of days. It's all about whether or not if they can, of course, get that balance right. And that, for me, I would start to think about wanting to attend a U.S. men's national team game. I mean, I haven't been to a U.S. men's national team game in a while now, but that's a lot to do with the fact that they haven't been playing in my area lately, and the fact that I started to kind of lose a little bit of faith of this team after what happened back in the qualifying part in 2017. But with the fact that there is some promising that is going on with this team, and that this is also going to be a game that's going to be feature a lot of MLS as players that's going to be played for the national team. This is definitely a game that I would want to attend if the price is not just ridiculously expensive to attend a U.S. men's national team game. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all these news? And as always, if there's any news that I didn't put on the board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I will see you guys next time.